Today is Saturday, March 28th, 2026. Welcome to Eyes on Intel. If you are new here, this is the beacon, this is the signal. Sit back, relax, and listen to the hum in my voice. We are going to start a bit differently today. I am going to read a letter. It is a formal, urgent demand for answers. Written directly to the architects of this machine by United States Senator Jon Ossoff and United States Senator Dick Durbin. I want you to listen to every single word of what is happening right now on American soil. We write with serious alarm regarding recent reports of abuse faced by detainees in U.S. Immigration and Enforcement custody at the Everglades Detention Facility, dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. There have been credible allegations that detainees at Alligator Alcatraz have been punished with confinement in a small, cage-like structure known as the box, where they are held in stress positions with hands and feet tightly shackled for hours at a time, in direct sunlight, with no access to food or water. These conditions reportedly suffered by detainees, as alleged, appear to violate Department of Homeland Security detention standards and the United Nations Convention Against Torture. We therefore urgently seek information from DHS and ICE about the purported use of the box. If the box is in use, we urge DHS and ICE to immediately cease its use and prevent detainees from being subjected to torture. Numerous reports of poor conditions and abuse at Alligator Alcatraz have surfaced since its opening in July 2025, including lack of food and access to reliable medical care, challenges accessing legal counsel, and other human rights concerns. However, recent reports of the box stand out as particularly egregious. One report describes the box as cramped, with enough space to stand, but not enough to lay down, forcing exhausted prisoners to sit and lean against the metal bars. Detainees placed in the box, which is located outside and in direct sunlight, are reportedly forced to endure high temperatures, high humidity, and horsefly-sized mosquitoes. In July, when the first allegations emerged, temperatures in the Everglades regularly exceed 90 degrees. One Nicaraguan man reported that his hands and feet were painfully shackled when he was placed in the box in the recreation yard, prohibiting any movement. He reportedly remained in the box directly exposed to the sun and heat for hours, with absolutely no water. The reported conditions of the box, including its placement in direct sunlight, its small dimensions and cage-like structure, and the lack of access to food and water, exceed disciplinary segregation practices allowable under ICE detention standards and ICE Directive 11065.1, which provides guidelines on the use of solitary confinement. That directive establishes that restrictive housing is a measure of last resort and requires that individuals in restrictive settings retain access to medical care and basic necessities. As described, the conditions individuals are allegedly subjected to in the box would not comply with these requirements. Indeed, reported use of the box as punishment rises to the level of torture prohibited under U.S. and international law. We therefore urge DHS to immediately cease use of the box at Alligator Alcatraz and across the entire U.S. immigration detention system. Given these concerns, we further demand responses to the following requests regarding the use of the box or any similar practice used to separate detainees in solitary confinement for the purposes of punishment no later than April 8, 2026. We are demanding to know if the non-citizens detained at Alligator Alcatraz are in the care and custody of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. If not, we demand to know exactly which state or federal agency is responsible for them. We are demanding a copy of the agreement between ICE and the state of Florida regarding this facility. We are demanding a full explanation of the purpose of the box. We want a copy of all written policies and guidelines for its use, including monitoring by medical and mental health professionals. We want to know exactly how many times the box has been used since the facility opened in July 2025, what the duration of each placement was, and exactly who has the authority to order a human being into it. Furthermore, we demand copies of any policy regarding the use of shackles on detainees placed in the box. We want to know exactly what oversight offices a detainee can address a complaint to, and what steps have been taken to provide them notice of their right to file those complaints. Finally, we demand copies of any significant incident reports created in relation to the use of the box at Alligator Alcatraz, and records indicating if this cage is currently being used at any other immigration detention facilities in the country. Sincerely, United States Senator John Ossoff and United States Senator Richard J. Durbin. Let that sink in for a second. We are not talking about a rumor. We are talking about official congressional alarm over a federal agency using a metal box to bake human beings in the Florida sun. This letter raises profound, terrifying questions about the absolute lack of oversight and the sheer cruelty of the people running this operation. Who gives the order to put a man in a cage until he breaks? Who decides that human rights simply stop existing the moment you cross the threshold of Alligator Alcatraz? But here is the most damning part, and the piece that this letter only begins to scratch the surface of. We are talking about an entire black site operating completely off the grid. Human rights monitors have already reported that an estimated 1,200 detainees have simply vanished from the ICE tracking systems inside this facility. 1,200 human beings, gone, unaccounted for. Their families and their lawyers have absolutely no idea where they are. How do that many people just disappear into thin air? It is a manufactured black hole. This type of illusion would make Houdini blush if it were not so damn vile and disgusting. They are not just breaking the law, they are erasing people. And if they can erase over 1,000 people in the swamps of Florida without facing a single consequence, what makes you think they won't build the exact same box in your state next? We are watching the physical occupation of our airports and the digital occupation of our phones. But what happens when you actually stand up and push back against the machine? What happens when you use your First Amendment right to say no? I just published a new piece on the ICE on IC's Substack that answers exactly that. It is called The ICE Conspiracy. This is the story of Bajun Mavalwala. He is an American patriot, a combat veteran who walked patrols in Kandahar province, one of the deadliest sectors in Afghanistan. When the Afghan government collapsed, he volunteered to pull our allies out of Kabul. He bled for this country. And how did the government repay him? An FBI tactical team blockaded his quiet street in Spokane, Washington, and raided his home at 6 a.m. They did not arrest him for domestic terrorism. They arrested him and charged him with a federal felony for conspiracy to impede a federal officer. His actual crime? Standing on a sidewalk protesting ICE. There was a 10-second scuffle at a protest that was initiated by a masked federal agent. No one was hurt, no property was destroyed, but the Department of Justice decided to turn a combat veteran into a test case for tyranny. They used a conspiracy charge because it carries a devastating 6-year prison sentence. Conspiracy does not require an actual crime to happen. It only requires the government to claim you agreed with others to do it. They want to use the threat of a federal cage to break a man who faced the Taliban, and by breaking him, they are betting they can terrify the rest of the country into absolute silence. Even their own people know this is a scam. Richard Barker, the acting U.S. Attorney for Eastern Washington, literally resigned his post rather than sign this legally bankrupt indictment. He refused to pervert his office for a political stunt. But the DOJ simply waited 2 days for him to leave, found a successor who would follow orders, and signed the paperwork. This is the blueprint for dismantling the First Amendment in real time. Once the government normalizes treating peaceful dissent as a federal conspiracy, there is no line they will not cross. I need you to go to the show notes right now. Click the link to the ICE on ICE Substack and read the full article. I break down exactly how Attorney General Pam Bondi and the ICE Protection Task Force are weaponizing the law against everyday citizens. I have also linked the video footage of the protest and the arrest. You need to watch the video with your own eyes. You need to see exactly how mundane the reality on the ground is compared to the overwhelming force of the federal charges. Watch it and share it. And while you're doing that, I need you to support PBS. We are only able to shine a light on the dark corners of this administration because of relentless, independent journalism. Publicly funded broadcasting is one of the last lines of defense we have against manufactured state narratives. Go support PBS, watch the documentary footage, read the Substack. We cannot let them quietly bury an American veteran in the meat. Before they build the physical box, they build the digital one. We need to talk about the invisible architecture building up all around you. We need to talk about how the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution is being actively and legally bypassed every single day. You were taught that the government needs a warrant to track your movements. You were taught that they have to stand in front of a judge and prove probable cause to monitor your life. That is no longer true. They found a loophole, and it is called commercially available information. Every time you download a free weather app or a random mobile game and blindly accept the terms of service, you are giving third-party data brokers permission to harvest your precise GPS coordinates. Agencies like ICE do not bother going to a judge anymore. They just open their massive budgets and buy your data in bulk from these brokers. They use this information to track individuals, map out networks of political dissenters, and monitor your exact location. Which brings us directly to what the White House just did. Yesterday, the administration rolled out a brand new official White House application. They sold it to the public as a simple convenience to get unfiltered updates. But when security researchers looked at the code, they found a surveillance Trojan horse. The app requests the ability to track your precise location in the background at all times. It requests permission to modify or delete the contents of your shared storage. It wants to view your local Wi-Fi connections and map your local network. These are the permissions required to build a real-time surveillance profile of every citizen who downloads it. They are testing the waters. They want to condition you to voluntarily install the tracking device directly into your own pocket. And once that app is normalized, the next logical step is making it mandatory to receive federal assistance or access basic services. Do not download the Trojan horse. This digital extortion racket goes beyond the White House. The exact same machine is currently manufacturing a moral panic to steal your digital anonymity. If you look at the news right now, you will see headlines celebrating landmark verdicts against Meta, YouTube, and Google for social media addiction. Politicians are taking victory laps. Do not fall for it. It is a trap. You are watching a masterclass in manufactured consent. These social media addiction lawsuits were not grassroots movements led by concerned parents. They were funded by shadowy private equity firms and spearheaded by a political coalition led by the Heritage Foundation. They are weaponizing the real pain of parents to set a legal precedent. They are using the guise of protecting children to force the repeal of Section 230, which would force every single platform to enact massive surveillance and identity verification protocols just to avoid liability. They want to mandate operating system-level identity tracking. They want to require you to scan your face and upload your physical driver license just to use the internet. Reddit is already trying to push biometric verification. And Meta is in on it. Meta is currently spending billions of dollars through shadow nonprofits to actively lobby for these invasive age verification laws. Why? Because Mark Zuckerberg knows that an identity verification mandate will destroy all of his smaller competitors and hand him a permanent monopoly over your verified data. The ultimate goal is to completely abolish your right to be anonymous online. The Department of Homeland Security has already stated they want social media sites to expose anti-ICE accounts. If your face and your ID are permanently attached to your device, there is no more organizing in the shadows. There is no more whistleblowing. There is no more dissent. None of this happens without complicit politicians. Every extortion racket needs a bagman. It needs someone weak enough to take the orders, take the heat, and hand over the leverage without asking questions. In this manufactured crisis, that role is being played perfectly by Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson is not a legislative leader. He is a pathetic joke of a speaker who has completely surrendered the constitutional power of the United States Congress to satisfy the whims of Donald Trump and the Extremist Freedom Caucus. Instead of legislating, instead of keeping the government open, all he does is listen to Donald Trump. When a bipartisan agreement is reached to fund the government and keep the airports running, Trump tells Johnson not to do it, and because Johnson is too cowardly to govern, he kills the deal. While the rest of the government starves and TSA agents go unpaid, Johnson is trying to force through a 60-day continuing resolution that specifically prioritizes funding for the ICE meat grinder, stripping away any reforms or guardrails, even after ICE has been caught torturing people in Alligator Alcatraz and letting teenagers die in their custody. Johnson wants to hand them a blank check. And what does that cowardice buy us? It buys us the physical occupation of our travel hubs. The administration claims they deployed ICE to over a dozen airports to help the TSA manage lines during the DHS funding stalemate. The footage proves this is a complete fabrication. At George Bush Intercontinental in Houston, wait times are exceeding 4 hours. And what are the heavily armed ICE agents doing to help? They are walking laps around baggage claim. They are chatting with each other. Some agents directly admitted to journalists that their presence is entirely about optics. They are a multi-billion-dollar prop, but there is a mask mutiny happening. President Trump issued public directives ordering these agents not to wear masks. Yet, in Chicago and New York, agents are defying the president and masking up anyway. Why? Because they are terrified of the cameras. In New York, ICE agents literally turned and ran away from photographers. They are hiding their identities because they know what they do in the shadows cannot survive the light of a public airport terminal. The most dangerous part of this deployment is the bait and switch. Border czar Tom Homan initially claimed the agents were strictly there to assist the TSA. But by Monday evening, the script flipped. Homan went on Fox News and declared that moving forward, agents will be arresting criminals going through airports. They used the TSA funding crisis as a Trojan horse. They got the agents in the door under the guise of crowd control, and now they are pivoting to actual law enforcement operations against domestic travelers. And the agents on the ground have admitted they do not believe their time at the airport will be over soon. This was never a temporary emergency measure. This is the permanent siege. We are not going to quietly feed the machine. We are going to starve it. I want everyone listening to check the show notes right now. There is a link to the full Ossoff and Durbin letter. There is a link to badinternetbills.com, and we have compiled a comprehensive list of data sanitation methods. Learn how to scrub your digital footprint and compartmentalize your devices. We have to stop making ourselves easy targets. And remember, open hearts, open minds.